trade. I think the market ended up down 0.38%, but it really didn't get going at all today. And I think it was largely looking across to the United States, where we've had some pretty grim news. I mean, the 20 million people we hear have been laid off in the month of April, and particularly in the sort of sharing economy. We've seen recently Uber's laid off 3,700, that's 14% of their workforce. Airbnb, 25% of its workforce, that's nearly 2,000 employees. Plus, we had, of course, the president talking at a White House event in the last 24 hours about the US-China trade deal, which, of course, the market's always very obsessed with this. And he said, look, China may or may not keep the trade deal, thank you very much. And he'd be able to report back in the next week or so as to whether any of the phase one agreements were actually being held up. So I think the market was a bit worried about that. And generally, all the banks were down. So this big trade surplus that we saw today didn't really feature. It underpinned this sort of mining doing very well, of course, nothing else. And all the banks were down dramatically.
And Ticky, a big shake-up with NAB.
Well, that's right. Actually, of all the banks, I mean, they're all down between 1.87 CBA, but the worst was 2.4% down was National Australia Bank. Now, Ross McEwen, the new CEO, did flag this when he was talking to us all a couple of weeks ago, that there would be a big shake-up. But I think about 70 jobs, this is sort of the second tier down, just underneath him, have been thrown up in the air. I think they've nailed about 50 of them. And in terms of his private banking, which, of course, they are the business bank, that role, which Anthony Healy actually left, and they're going to have somebody acting in that role. He's probably looking for somebody international market, maybe talking about Les Matheson, who actually is still sitting there at RBS in Britain, which is where Ross hailed from. So you may see a bit of movement there. Yeah.